What's up, y'all? Today we're working on the new racing lawnmower, but this is the power plant version of the racing lawnmower. I'm going to show y'all the steps of what I did to make this motor run the way it's going to run, about compression, and the way I cleaned it out. Okay, so what you see in front of you is the valves and the piston. What I did was I got some emery cloth and I kind of smoothed down the edges there to make better airflow, so whenever the head is on here, the air will travel a lot smoother over this instead of having like a little I guess you call it, like, I don't know, just something in its way, like an obstacle, to make it to where air is restricted. So what you want to do is you want to take this emery cloth and you want to kind of smooth down around here and around over here. This is going to be your exhaust, which you can already tell. This is your exhaust pipe, and right here is going to be your intake, which is this one is your carburetor. And so what you'll want to do is just get the emery cloth and kind of smooth down these things right here, and they call those eyebrows. Just get those down as far as you can, but be careful not to get out here on these edges, because if you do, you won't have a good seal. So when your head gasket goes on, you'll have an uneven surface, and it won't seat on there just right, and you won't get any compression, and you'll wind up blowing out your head gasket. And so be careful, try not to do that. And yeah, so another thing that I did was I took all this off, and now I call it race prep. I don't know what y'all call it, but see that little hole right in there? That hole wasn't ever there. I took the cap off my rod there, and I drilled that hole out just so I can get some more oil in there on that crank, so it doesn't burn out my piston rod. And that's just something that I do. I don't know if anybody's ever done that before, but I've had problems in the past of my piston rod completely shattering on me. I'll show y'all what I'm talking about. Now this is what I'm talking about whenever I say there's not enough oil going on the crank. All them grooves right there, that's caused by lack of oil, and it's friction. So what it did was it cracked the piston rod, and it completely melted it, and finally it just busted. Took the rod cap right off, and it wound up seizing my motor up and tearing up a lot of other things. That was on the mud mower. Y'all can go watch that other video of when I took the motor apart and showed y'all what it looked like on the inside. But yeah, it was pretty nasty. So that's what you want to do. You want to put your little hole in there. I'd say about a 1/4 inch drill bit will work just fine. Alright, so what I used to clean this motor out, and what I used to clean the oil pan out, was gasoline. So I got me a spray bottle, and y'all are probably going to hate me for doing this, but what I did was I just squirted it in there, got it all nice and clean. Did the same thing to the oil pan, and it worked out pretty good. It actually cleaned it up real nice. I might get some like a wire brush or something like that. I'm definitely not going to use a wire brush. I don't even know why I said that. Maybe some emery cloth and clean some of that rust off. Soak it with some WD-40 or some that Lucas. I got some Lucas break-in oil. I think I'll just go ahead and pour some of that in there whenever I put it all back together. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put them valves back in there. Now these right here, well, these are not the valves, but they're like the what you call the cam lobes. Well, those are the cam lobes. These ride on the cam, so these do connect to the valves up there. So which would go all the way up here. That would be your valve springs in there, and then that would be your valves on the top, right up there. Alright, now I'm going to install the cam. What you need to look for is whenever you install this cam, there's going to be two little marks you want to look for. There's a mark right there on the crank, then here's a mark right here on the cam. You want to line those up exactly. If not, your timing's going to be way off and your motor's not going to run right. or it won't even run at all. So what you want to do is you need to put the end of this cam in that slot down there, and you want to turn your crank until both of those marks line up. Alright, I got both of those marks lined right up with each other. There's your mark there, and then your markers right there on the cam. Pretty much that's about it for the inside of the motor. Now I'm going to be putting gaskets on, and I'll show you how to do that. Alright, so the gasket didn't work. It was the wrong size. It just don't fit. You can tell. I'll put it on this old pan. It don't fit. See that big old arch right there? They gave me the wrong one. So what I'm going to do is put some RTV, red RTV. That's high temperature. It can withstand the heat. I'll put that around there. What you want, enough surface area, but you don't want to get it on anything else. All you want to do is make sure that you get enough on there, but not enough to where it's too much. So what I've got on there is a perfect amount. So you can kind of go off of that. Another thing that you might want to know is whenever you're putting RTV red silicone on something, you want to let it set for about 20 minutes. Let it get good and tacky, and then go ahead and put your oil pan on, or whatever you're putting on. You want to wait at least 20 minutes. Okay, so I got the oil pan on now. Looking pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to install my bolts. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bolts that goes in this old pan. This is on a 11.5 horse. Whenever putting the old pan on your lawnmower engine, you want to make sure that you line those pins up, because it helps putting the motor back on. You've got a pin over here, which you can't see on this side, but this pin right here, they're called dowel pins. But you want to make sure whenever you're putting your motor back together that you do have those in, because it makes assembly really easy. When putting them bolts back in the old pan, it's not necessary to use Loctite, because they've already got a lock washer on them already. But if you want to, you can go ahead and do it. Alright, so this is a head gasket. You're going to put this head gasket right on the head surface. You're going to get it as straight as possible, and then you're going to put your bolts in. Now there is a right way and a wrong way of putting this on. As you can see, this side, whatever I put the bolts in, it didn't line up. So you need to make sure that you get this on the right way and properly, because if you don't, it can mess all sorts of things up, and you don't want that. Alright, so whenever you get your head put on your motor, you need to make sure that all your bolts go in just fine and they're not stripping. And when you get ready to tighten them all down, you need to go in a crisscross pattern. So say for instance, you go from here to here to here to here, here to here, and here, and right back up to this one. And that right there would be your crisscross pattern. And then I usually don't do that, go back in a circle motion. So when you do go back in the same procedure that you did in the beginning in a crisscross pattern, just don't go tighten this one, tighten this one, tighten this one, and so on, okay? Because what that's going to do is that's going to warp your head, and you're going to have all sorts of problems that you do not want. Okay, so I don't know the torque specs on any of this, so what I'm going to do is oh my gosh. Okay. So 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock. At 12 o'clock, you do a quarter of a turn. You got it all put back together. What I did was, when I put it back together, I like to use some type of a thick lubricant before I even put some real oil in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add 2 quarts of oil to this at a top it off to where it needs to be, I just added some of this Lucas engine oil stop leak. Not because it's going to leak oil, it's just because it's a thick additive. It's almost like Lucas, just a regular oil stabilizer. I think that's right. I think they have oil stabilizer. But anyways, use a high mileage oil because it's synthetic and it's better on the engine. Because these engines are underneath a lot of stress all the time. So what you want to do is use that high mileage synthetic blend. So I'm going to go ahead and add 2 quarts to this motor and put it where it needs to be.